Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Different Echo in the AITAH subreddit. The post is titled AITAH for telling my wife to kick out her friend who's been living with us for the past month. Her husband kicked her out. I am 45M and my wife's friend Zell is F32. She has been living with us for the past month after her marriage imploded about a month ago. Zell came to our country about 3 years ago on a work visa. She was working for a company and met my wife Molly, F43, at a work event. Molly and Zell became quick friends as Molly used to do social work, and she found Zell's story to be very moving and interesting. Zell started dating this guy I'll call Ed, M35, who had recently launched a company in her field. She left her original job and started working for Ed, and not long after that, they got married. Zell's job became pretty cushy, so instead of working, she went back to college to pursue a career in social work, and since Molly had experience in this, she became a sort of mentor for Zell. With Ed funding Zell's education and living expenses, it seemed like everything was set for her. Fast forward to mid-August, and Ed found out Zell had been cheating on him for several weeks with one of her classmates. Ed immediately cut funding for Zell's education and kicked her out of his house. The prenup Ed had her sign left her with absolutely nothing, effectively making her penniless and homeless. On top of that, Ed has spread the story across their community, and as such, Zell's reputation is in tatters, and her family back in their home country wants nothing to do with her. The divorce hasn't been finalized at the time of this writing. With the resources he has, I imagine Ed could speed up the process, but for whatever reason, it's dragging on. With seemingly no one to turn to, Zell came to us and Molly welcomed her one day while I was at work. Since then, she has been living in our basement. Molly spends a lot of time now just talking to Zell and trying to help her get her life back on track. So much so that it is starting to affect our personal lives, and I feel like childcare has been made exclusively my responsibility for most of the week. Not only that, but since our gym equipment is in the basement, I had to stop working out, which has adversely affected my own mental health. I've been very annoyed about the entire situation, but have largely borne it in silence until last night. Right before bed, Molly started going on about how the divorce could take months and that we need to find Zell a lawyer. At this stage, I told her that Zell had overstayed her welcome and needed to leave. It got pretty heated, and my wife said I was being shockingly unempathetic. I told her she was ignoring her responsibilities to our children, which deeply offended her. In the end, I told her that as a compromise, we could buy Zell a plane ticket back to her home country so she could be with her family. Molly was so upset at this for whatever reason and just responded with "good night." We haven't spoken since then, partially because I decided to go work in my office today since I needed a break from Molly's nonsense. I honestly don't know what to do at this stage. I just want that woman out of my home. Update: 15 hours later, I still haven't really spoken to my wife. Partially because I was at work all day, but also because I was hoping she'd reach out first. When I got home, Zell was still hanging around like nothing happened, though I guess expecting her to magically leave would be asking for too much. Before the day is done, I will talk to my wife about our situation again because it needs to end. Also, for those wondering, the classmate won't have her either. According to my wife, he told Zell that his personal life would be destroyed if he tried pursuing anything with her, so he ended things abruptly. To my understanding, he has a wife who doesn't even know he cheated. User I want to be an anemone said NTA. Wife is putting her martyr complex ahead of her own family. Zell ruined her own life. Letting her stay any length of time is incredibly generous. Paying for her to fly home to her family is beyond what most would even consider. Make it clear to your wife that you're disappointed she's putting a cheater ahead of her own family. User Dresden Mouse said NTA. Your wife is ignoring the fact that everything that happened to her friend was brought upon herself. Also, bringing a guest into your home without telling you is a huge no-no, especially when there is no plan or exit strategy. And now she wants to finance her lawyer. No, there is more to this. I would not be surprised if your wife was aware of the affair all along. User Late Glenn said NTA. The decision of whether or not a third adult would be moving into your marital family home should have been made as a married couple. Your wife should not have made a unilateral decision to welcome another person into your house without discussing it with you and agreeing on it together. You each get a vote in this. I would remind your wife that she did not respect you when she invited this woman to move in, and yet you have tolerated it for for weeks. You are not unilaterally kicking your guest out. You are seeking to discuss with your wife the options you have, and you put up an idea of buying her a plane ticket. That was a good suggestion. There was nothing wrong with it. If your wife doesn't like it, she should come up with another idea, not just shut you down. About 4 days later, OP gave us an update. I haven't had the chance to update my post because the last few days have been particularly hectic for the family. To sum things up, I did reach out to Molly on Sunday and we managed to patch things up. Since we hadn't spoken for more than a day at that point, I decided not to push the Zell issue any further right then. Fast forward to early Monday morning when we got a call from Molly's sister. Apparently, their father had a serious fall in the bathroom during the night, and their whole family is flying out to check in on him. Molly booked her flight soon after the news and left yesterday. She hasn't booked her return yet, but I'm guessing she'll be gone 10 to 15 days, depending on the severity of her father's injuries. In the meantime, I've been totally swamped with work and taking care of the kids, but Zell has offered to help out where she can. This morning, she made breakfast for all of us and even packed lunches for me and the kids. So I don't really have any complaints at the moment. Last night, she did some laundry and straightened up the living room and playroom as well. So far, I'm pleasantly impressed and figure I'll keep my mouth shut for now, depending on how things go from here. Edit. After reading a few comments, I'd like to assure everyone that it is extremely unlikely that Zell will try anything suggestive. To be totally honest, I always got the sense that she felt like I didn't like her much. In the time she's been here, we've probably only spoken 10 to 12 times, and about half of those were just in the past 24 hours given the current circumstances. If she wants to make herself useful, I won't stop her. That being said, several of my women co-workers have expressed their disbelief and disappointment in how Molly departed so suddenly, and one even suggested that I do not eat food prepared by Zell. Moreover, 2 of the older ladies have even offered to make food for myself and the children, but I declined. The way I see it, if Zell is useful when I actually need the help, I won't complain despite the protests of some of my co-workers. Molly and I have been paying for all her living expenses. This is the least she can do. User purpose no said, so your wife welcomed a cheater into your house, then left her with you for 10 to 15 days when she goes overseas. Your wife is a bit naive. Make sure you keep your boundaries with Zell clear and keep up your communications with Molly. User Contrary Coyote said, get some security cameras. Your wife left you alone with a known cheater. You need to cover your ass because if she puts the moves on you and you reject her, as you should, then she can make up whatever and you're toast. The law always believes the woman over the man. Always. Be safe and good luck. User C. Rain said, the wife took in a cheater and has defended the cheater at every turn, going so far as to call you unempathetic when you tried to enforce a boundary when the wife was beginning to prioritize the cheater over her family. That worries me greatly. Usually, the only time I see a person defend a cheater that vigorously is when that person is trying to atone for their own sins. Then another week later, OP gave us a second update. It's been a week since Molly departed, so I thought it would be a good time to provide a brief update on our situation. Molly's father broke his foot when he fell in the bathroom. Fortunately, the injury isn't too severe and the doctors expect him to recover within about 8 weeks. The greater concern at the time was the cut on his lip, which caused pretty significant bleeding and understandably led to all the panic, especially for Molly's mother who found him on the floor. I spoke with him a few times over the phone and he seems to be in good spirits. For a man turning 88 this November, he's spry for his age and is pretty active, so I'm hopeful for his full recovery. Molly and I have also had several conversations. While she initially intended to stay longer to help her parents adjust, her mother has been adamant that she return home. In fact, her mother even expressed some frustration over how abruptly Molly left and suggested that I should have been the one to go instead. It's something Molly wants to talk about in person. Molly's return flight is scheduled for October 10th. At home, things have really been shaken up by Molly's absence. To be honest, this entire ordeal has made me more appreciative of all she does. On the plus side, I've been getting to spend much of my time with my 2 little girls, and this past weekend I even learned how to braid their hair, though I admit I'm still not very good. Zell has continued to be very helpful around the house. She's an extraordinary cook, and every day we are treated to something new for supper. The ingredients she needs are expensive, but given the quality of the food and how much the girls and I enjoy it, I'm not complaining. Zell asked to use the gym equipment we have in the basement, and I agreed. This led to a conversation about how I used to work out down there, and she offered to occupy one of the other rooms during my exercise time. However, I've been mainly coordinating my workouts with when she's doing something else so as not to disturb her. Zell has also asked me to look over a few resumes she's been sending out to different job openings, and I've gone over them and given her suggestions on how to improve them. I don't anticipate the coming days will bring anything too exciting, but I'll be sure to share another update if anything noteworthy arises. OP's most recent update came just 2 days ago. I regret to disappoint those eagerly awaiting scandal, but Zell and I behaved entirely appropriately during Molly's absence. Yes, I've managed to rise above the incredibly low bar of not betraying my marriage in the few days Molly was away. I feel like I deserve a medal for such extraordinary restraint. Now, on to the boring update. The remaining days before Molly's return continued as per the new normal. Zell continued being helpful and attended 2 different job interviews and got 1 acceptance. Molly returned in the early hours of October 10th, and things have been going well for the past few days. I didn't bring up the fact that Zell is still living with us for 2 reasons. Molly is still pretty concerned about her father, and Zell had been very helpful during her absence. So for those reasons, I was waiting for Molly to bring it up, and I didn't have to wait too long. Last night, Molly brought it up while we were getting ready for bed. She mentioned how she worries about Zell since without a job or a degree, her chances of being deported eventually are higher. She then went on about how Zell couldn't return to her home country since she was so accustomed to life here. This is the usual sob story Molly's been telling for the past 2 months. I mentioned helping out Zell with her resumes, and Molly was happy with that. She then told me something I wasn't aware of. For the past 2 weeks, Zell and Ed have been texting each other. That's news to me, though in hindsight it explains a lot, especially given Ed's lack of progress in finalizing the divorce. On top of that, Ed has continued footing her phone bill all this time. The man's patience is on another level. Should he and Zell reconcile, I floated the idea of asking him to financially compensate us. Molly shot down the idea, but I can sense she wasn't entirely closed off to it. Aside from that, not too much has been happening. Zell's job should start in about 2 weeks. Once she starts getting paid, she'll move out. Molly tells me that Zell has already started looking into apartments. This next story was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named Aggravating Start. The post is titled AITAH for throwing my pregnant Sill's groceries away. This is a throwaway account and a repost and update of sorts because my post got taken down from the other sub. My brother and his wife Laura, who is 7 months pregnant, are staying with us for a week or so since he's interviewing for jobs in the city my family and I are in. My kids love having their aunt and uncle around, and everything's been great. Yesterday, Laura went out and came back with groceries. I thanked her but told her that we don't expect them to do this, the kitchen is stocked, and that we're just enjoying having them. She said that she wanted to and that most were cravings she's been having. I started helping her unload the bags and noticed that a lot of snacks were with peanuts. Cookies, crackers, PB, even some sort of cake fusion. It all made me uneasy because she knows my oldest son, 8M, is extremely allergic. I don't keep anything of the kind in our home because we've had an incident when he was younger where we almost lost him. I didn't want to be rude, but I told her that I'm not comfortable with having the stuff in the house. She told me that she would be careful, that she wouldn't eat it around him or his siblings, and that she'd clean up after herself, that she was having intense cravings and needed them. Look, I've had 4 kids and kind of get where she's coming from, although I never had to have something, but every woman is different. I made sure my son knew not to touch any of it and to leave her alone when she's eating them. That was that. Today, I woke up early to make breakfast and opened the fridge only to be greeted by strawberries dipped in PB left out without a container to chill. The PB jar wasn't sealed properly next to them, and there were sandwiches on a plate because she likes the bread cold and soggy. I was pissed. I've read enough about airborne contamination to know that you can't really determine it, but I wasn't risking it. I grabbed a bag and started throwing everything in it, our groceries, hers, I didn't care. I was going to take the bag, drive to a shelter, and let them know about the situation. Laura woke up while I was on my rampage, came down, and asked all upset what I was doing. I was snippy with her and didn't try to hide it. We got into an argument with her defensively saying that I can't do this, that the baby needs it, and that it's cruel to put a pregnant woman through unsatisfied cravings. I told her bluntly that I don't give a single f***. If she can't keep to her word, then I won't either, and that she'll live without her craving. My son can't say the same with his allergy. She went back upstairs, packed her bag, and came back down, grabbed the bag of food, and left in a huff. My brother was at his interview and called me half an hour later to ask me what happened. He was upset with his wife, but also with me because nothing happened, and at the end of the day, my son is fine. I told my husband when he came back from work, and he's completely on my side. Mini update. Like some people had predicted in the comments on the other sub, Laura did go straight to my family and started complaining. She hadn't twisted anything, told them the full honest story, and my mother was livid. She called me panting like she ran a marathon after she berated Laura to make sure my son was okay. So I can only imagine the riot act she read her. Apparently, even my stepdad gave Laura one of his disapproving frowns. My brother came back in the evening to get his stuff since Laura had only packed hers for some reason. He did apologize for what she did, said that he'll have a chat with her once she's calmed down. She's been inconsolable. He told me that she's been crying since she left my mom's house and that she now feels unwelcome and unloved in our family, and he blames me for it. My husband butted in and told him that it's enough. That whatever she's feeling doesn't cover half of what we felt, and that she needs to get over herself. That I've been scrubbing the house from top to bottom for hours because of her actions. I did get panicky and went on to deep clean the whole house, especially the kitchen, but anyway. My brother left after he said that there's no leveling with us when we're being this stubborn. Now that I've had time to get out of the state I was in, I do feel bad that she's distressed and feels unwelcome in our family. That was never my goal. I've been debating sending her an apology, not for my actions because I stand by them, but for the way I went about it. I shouldn't have allowed the stuff in our house in the first place and could have been calmer about it after I opened the fridge. About 3 weeks later, OP gave us an update. A lot of people asked me to update, so here it is. Warning, this is a long one, and if I wasn't a jerk before, I sure am now. So after my mom berated Laura and my brother yelled at my husband and me, I took the advice I was given and sent them a long text, which ended up being a bit of a ramble about everything, how messed up the situation is, how we're disgusted by their stance, and how we'll be going LC until we feel ready to be around them again. That was the day after my brother packed his bags and left. I was left on red and I thought that was that until a few days ago when I got a call from Laura. I thought about not answering it, but curiosity got the better of me. When I picked up, Laura tried to make awkward small talk, but I think she sensed I wasn't in the mood and got right to it. She apologized about her behavior, said she had no excuse other than her hormones, and we ended up having a long chat about everything. By the end of it, I actually felt better and like we could get past it and work on our relationship. She also mentioned that she would still like for my family and me to come to her birthday dinner. It wasn't going to happen in a restaurant anymore and that it was going to be at their house instead. I told her that I'll talk with my husband and get back to her. I also got a text from my brother apologizing and saying he was just trying to protect and stand by his wife. It was too soon to start mending things, as my husband pointed out, but he left the choice up to me, and I honestly believed her apology because she had never acted like that before and she seemed actually ashamed of herself. Anyway, my sister and parents were also invited, but my sister's kids wanted a cousin's sleepover instead of going with us. So after talking it over with my sister, we agreed for them to have one at my house. My babysitters of a year are my next door neighbors. They're sweet and responsible 16-year-old twins who live with their single mom. They usually team up and tackle my kids on date nights. With my sisters added 2 kids to the mix, I asked their mom if she was free to join their duo and she agreed. So I called Laura and told her that Richard and I are coming. When we got to their house, Laura greeted my husband and me at the door. We handed her the gift and went in, but she seemed puzzled that we didn't have a trail of kids with us, so I reminded her that it's just us adults tonight. The same thing happened when my sister and her husband walked in. Dinner was awkward no matter how we tried to lighten up the mood, and the conversation was stilted at best, but I thought it was at least a step forward. Laura asked this time about why the kids were not with us, that she had made special food for them. I never mentioned the kids when I got back to her, just my husband and me, but I felt like it was my fault that I didn't clarify, and so I apologized for it and thanked her for thinking of them. My sister chimed in that her kids and mine were having a cousin's sleepover tonight and how she was excited about our soon-to-be nephew joining them when he's here and older. Laura looked at her with a smile and said, "Yeah, I'm sure he'll be best friends with his cousins and his step-cousins." This pissed me off because we don't use step anything with the kids, but I bit my tongue. For context, my sister is technically my stepsister. I know I use stepdad in my first post. I usually call him by his first name. I consider him a parental figure since he raised me since I was 10, but I had a dad and the title will always be his. My sister gave her a hurt look, but it was my brother who nudged his wife with a "what are you doing" look. A few minutes went by again with eating and light conversation before Laura asked again about our kids, mainly who was watching them since all 4 parents are here. I told her that my neighbor and her daughters are babysitting, to which she laughed and joked about how incompetent the girls and their mom must be to need all 3 of them to wrangle the kids. Also, for context, I have 4 kids. I'm biased and like to think they're well behaved, but they're sometimes too much for one person to handle, even me, and I'm the one that brought them into this world. Add my sister's 2 kids and it's a lot for 2 teenage girls to handle even for just a few hours. We left at 7 and said we'll be back at 11. It has absolutely nothing to do with the girls whom my kids adore or their mom who is as kind as they come. Before I could retort anything, my mom stepped in with one of her smiles and told Laura that it's so kind of her to offer her own competence and watch the kids next time. That shut her up real fast. After that, dinner was even more awkward until we cleared the table and Laura brought out dessert while my brother got the cake from the fridge. Here's where I lost the last of my remaining brain cells. I went to the bathroom and when I came out, I saw my husband carrying my bag and trying to usher me out of the front door to leave. He looked pissed and I was beyond confused and obviously resisted because yes, the dinner is a train wreck, but let me at least say goodbye and give a lame excuse for our departure. When my husband tried to literally carry me out, I knew something was wrong and after a couple of tries, I darted past him back to the dining room. Laura's now ready dessert table consisted of PB cake pops, PB pie, PB cookies, PB brownies, and to top it all off, a PB birthday cake that my brother brought in and was sniffing at with a horrified look. Laura then gave me a big smile and said loudly to my family, I thought I should at least get to have my cravings on my birthday. Get your fill before she throws these out too. I honestly thought for a second that my sister was going to tackle her, and I wasn't that far behind her because all I could think about was the fact that she thought my kids were coming, and she planned this accordingly. I felt so guilty for allowing the stuff in our house the last time, and if my sister's kids hadn't wanted to sleep over, I was going to walk my son into danger a second time. I lost my shit. Without thinking about my actions, I grabbed Laura's head, forced her face towards my brother, who was I think too shocked to react, and slammed her head straight into the cake. I held it down as long as I could while she flailed and told her I hope she chokes on her cravings before I let her go. I honestly wanted to go for the pie too, but I had embarrassed myself enough by acting like that in the first place. So I told my brother that I'm done with both him and his wife, and if they try to contact me or my family again, I'm filing for a protective order. Then I let my husband lead me out. My sister was cackling as she followed us with her husband, but our parents stayed back. I heard Laura screaming profanities after us, but my stepdad raised his voice, which shut her up. I got a lot of jokes about his frown on my first post, but the man is as stoic as they come. Him showing any emotion is a big deal. I remember that his frown alone growing up was enough to literally stop my sister and me in our tracks, because we knew if he gave us one that we messed up. I haven't asked my mom what happened after we left because I can't handle any more heartache from my brother or his actions. I don't think this was the update anyone wanted, least of all me, but I'm completely done with both of them. Even though my brother looked like he had no idea, the stuff was in his house, happening under his damn roof. I'm sad I won't be in my nephew's life and my kids won't get to know the new cousin they've been waiting for. I'd rather cry over that than over my son's life. I don't expect anyone to be kind in the comments. I'm 32, I shouldn't have been so naive, and I know I shouldn't have reacted like that. And I'm going to be dealing with that with my therapist along with the guilt I'm feeling, but please take it easy on me, I'm still shaken up. I'm also looking into family therapy for my kids so they can better process not having their uncle and aunt around after them having been a close presence in their lives. User United Manor said, your brother will lose his family or his wife. She won't allow him to have both. Laura doesn't believe you. She thinks you're at best overdoing the allergy thing or downright lying, and you're doing it just to get attention. Because of course she deserves all the attention. You're NTA even with the cake incident. NC is absolutely the right thing to do. She put your son at risk of dying for reasons no sane person could fathom. User Beneficial Breath said, I smell something weird was going on because she keeps asking where the kids were. That is sus as hell. Normally the response of, we got our neighbor babysitting for the night should be enough to cut any other comments on that. Shoving her into the pie, cupcakes, and whatever wasn't the most mature response on your part, but does it make you a jerk? Maybe a justified jerk if you really need a judgment. Before cutting your brother out of your life, I would like to see his response to that. It would be a divorce-worthy offense for me. If the SIL has a PB craving during her pregnancy, having PB stuff in her house doesn't raise an eyebrow for me. She could have just kept them to herself and served you a normal chocolate or vanilla cake for dessert. So I would take a wait-and-see approach concerning your brother. However, still don't come near any of you anymore.